What's up, beautiful people? My name is Baby Norman, and welcome to Studio Stories. So I can go from here to here, right? I'm like in a box. Okay, so Baby's my real name, and I was named after my father's rock and roll band called Baby. I've definitely heard Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner all my life. If you guys know that 80s movie, Dirty Dancing, Nobody Puts Me in a Corner. But I guess you can put me in a box, so, huh? Anyway, I am an actress, singer, songwriter, model, host, voiceover artist, producer, and director, and actually do all those things. To give you a little bit of my story without taking on too much of a roller coaster, you'll have to read the memoir for the full story. But I started my career out doing music. From the time I was little, I wrote songs and sang and was dancing and performing. My father's a musician, as I said, and I came from a musical family. So I was like playing the tambourine and things like that in his band from the time I was little. I was always around music, just in my soul. The first song I wrote, I think I was like 3, and I remember performing at my grandmother's bridge club, dancing on a table and like performing it, and something sparkly like this, I think. I love to dress up. The first song I recorded, I was about 16 years old, and I was dating a DJ at the time. It was kind of a dance track, and he was able to play at different clubs he was working in Atlanta. And it just kind of started my love for music even more. The writing process, not so much being in the studio at that time, but the writing process. So I started music and then modeling. I started doing a little bit of that here and there around clubs in Atlanta. Dancing in different clubs too, and helping promote different venues and things like that. And I've even modeled for Playboy. Don't look up the pictures. Do look up the pictures. Don't look up the pictures. Do look up the pictures. Just kidding. Yeah. So I've done a lot of modeling and all kinds of things though, from like my feet, literally being a foot model, to my body parts, to hair modeling, to teeth modeling. All kinds of modeling. Let's see. As far as my career, when I was probably in my early 20s, it was a lot of modeling, but a little bit of acting. And I did a little bit of extra work on a couple of films, one called Fled, and I kind of caught the bug with acting at that point. I started taking some classes and felt like it was really something that I wanted to do. It was fun. So in Atlanta, from the time I was about 18 to probably 23, it was more music, but I was still doing a little bit of acting. I met a lot of beautiful people during my lifetime so far, and a lot of people that have really helped me propel my career in a lot of different ways. One of those people was Prince. He was very special to me and holds a special place in my heart and always will. He was a part of my life for a very long time. I recorded and wrote with them and traveled with them and danced with them. And I got to work with many beautiful people and amazing creative people like Dallas Austin and Tricky Stewart, producers like Ford and DJ Rooney G. The list goes on and on and on. So yeah, let's see. From the time I'm trying to do like ages, which is kind of funny, taking me through the story. But I was living in Atlanta and working on music, and let's see, Prince was not in my life all the time at this point in my life when I met my partner at the time, Ryan Waters, who played guitar for Sade. And we worked on a lot of music too. And the styles that we worked on were kind of like, it was more like rock and electronica. And we got to perform at different clubs around Atlanta, which was really cool, make a little bit of noise in those areas. Continued to write and sing and produce music with him. And after I separated with Ryan, this could be like how I do the timeline with like, depending on what partner I'm with. That's how I do it. Like I was with this guy, here was I doing. That's my clock around what I did. But anyway, I moved to Vegas for a little bit and lived in LA and Vegas, bounced back and forth, working in the entertainment industry. And I fell in love and started working with my partner at the time. And we had a band called 333s. and we performed all over Vegas in different venues. It was a lot of fun, very cool. Vegas is crazy. You don't get a lot of sleep there. It's definitely a city where people come to party and probably not a place to have a healthy relationship. But it definitely changed me in a lot of ways. I lost my fiance tragically when I lived in Vegas, and just needed to get back out of Atlanta and move back home, which is, I'm back out of Vegas, back to Atlanta, which is home. We'll start over. I needed to move from Vegas back to Atlanta where I felt like I was home again and get my balance. So I moved back to Atlanta about 13 years ago, and although I was still creating music and writing and really enjoying doing that, the songs that were coming out of me a lot were very sad. And I didn't want to feel like I was stuck in that place. So I kind of stepped away from music a little bit and got back into acting. So I put myself into acting classes and got an agent, and the stars just started lining up for me. I started booking TV and film and commercials and doing hosting, and it just really started propelling a lot when I got back to Atlanta. It was really cool. The momentum definitely was going. I mean, there's so many projects I've worked on. I guess like to say the best thing is just like to check out the IMDb page, but there's been a lot that I've done, and I've enjoyed it. Sometimes the independent films that you work on, which there's a big independent scene in Atlanta, Georgia. Sometimes they're not always the best. Sometimes they're great, but sometimes they're not always the best. So I could share one story with you that I will about something that happened to me during a certain project that will help you out there, actresses, actors, anybody in the industry, about really needing to get your contracts perfect. I was a part of this film where I was a lead, and it was supposed to be like a PG-13 film. And during the first day of filming, the producers asked me if I would mind doing one of the scenes topless. And I didn't really mind doing that, but I wanted to be paid for my work. So we tried to get in touch with my agent, which I couldn't at the time. And they said, well, how about this? We don't use the scene unless, we have two versions in case, like, whatever network we go to, we have this version and this version. Are you comfortable with that? We'll pay you more if you do it, and this and that. And I was like, I'm comfortable with my body. I'm okay with doing the scene that way. It wasn't necessarily to go deep within the film. It didn't help propel the story. It was just kind of sillier that way. But I said that I would if I got paid a certain amount. But there were no contracts that day. And so after I filmed the scene, an optional version of it where I was topless, I spoke with my agent, and she goes, well, you have got to get an addendum to the contract. You have to. You have to make sure that they pay you for this, especially if they use the scene. And I'd spoken with other people. You're really not supposed to shoot anything like that in the first place unless it's, going in like ahead of time. You're supposed to know what you're doing, right? We'd like you to be topless. We'd like you to do this. So you feel the pressure on you, and you're like in this environment where everything's already set up. They don't want to have to do reshoots. It's like, it was an uncomfortable place, but needless to say, I was very much a businesswoman, and I wanted to make sure that I was paid for the work that I chose to do. I was not getting the addendum to the contract. And I was like, we were filming every day, and it was getting more and more uncomfortable to me. I was emailing producers and trying to get, the contract revised so that I would be paid if they used the scene. And they were just not being on it. So I said, I'm not going to show up for filming anymore unless I get the addendum to the contract. So basically on the last day, I got the addendum to the contract, but it was very uncomfortable filming. It was really, really, really weird. Really weird. And then when I watched the film back, a lot of my scenes had been cut down. They were shorter. So it was someone's ego that got in the way. And really what needs to happen is people need to be professional. And it doesn't always happen. Even in like SAG-AFTRA, the SAG-AFTRA industry, sometimes people can try to push you a little bit more, but you need it in the contract. You need to know what you're doing. And it's okay to say what you want. And although they probably called me a diva for not wanting to show up on set that day and be like, I need the addendum, I had to get it. I needed to get it. So they didn't use the scenes. I should have been paid for it anyway. But that's one of my stories. So always get it in contract. Always get in a contract and know what you're going into. There's been so much that I've filmed. It's like I want to share so much. Yeah, a funny story that I could share with you is one of the first films that I did where I was a lead. It's called Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, which has become like a cult classic kind of film. It's funny. It's just as funny as it sounds. It's an asylum film, and I was a lead. I played Abe's girlfriend, Mary Owens, and it was kind of like if you saw the film Abraham Lincoln versus the Vampire Slayer or whatever that film was at the time. They kind of bite off of films like that are big Hollywood films, and they make their own version of it. So that was ours, Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies. Richard Shankman directed it, love him to life. And Bill Oberst was my Abraham Lincoln. He's an amazing actor. He really, really is great. Like, to me, A-list actor. He's great. But we filmed at Fort Pulaski in Savannah, and although it was a big crew, it wasn't like the biggest crew, and people were trying to figure out as we were going what was going on, and we had some makeup artists that had not showed up one day to convert several people into zombies slash not zombies slash back to beauty. And at one point I was doing my own makeup, and we were filming scenes that you don't film in continuity. You film what scene, you know, depending on what location you're at. And at one point we had wrapped on one scene, and I had to go back to makeup to get ready for the next one. And the makeup artist didn't have the right scene that we were about to go film. So she put me back into full, like, blown zombie gear. I'm telling a little bit about this story, like what happens to me in the film, but put me into zombie makeup. And I'm going with the team and the crew and the actors and everything, and we're about to go into this big scene where we cross the drawbridge and stuff, and they're like, why are you a zombie? Why are you a fucking zombie right now? Why are we taking a zombie across the bridge? I'm like, I don't know what we're doing here. They're like, we wouldn't be taking you out. Who's in charge here? So we had to have a meeting. You know, they had to take me out of this intense makeup they had put me in with contacts and everything, put me back into the beauty look. I was just so scattered. It was crazy but funny. And it's one of those things that I guess can happen on set if people aren't really communicating and know what's going on. But needless to say, I had a lot of fun on that film. It was really, really cool. I made friends forever, which I often do on sets, you know? You make your friends forever. You might not see them every day, but it's fun. I think what else I can share with you beautiful people out there. I've done a lot with music, you know? Around around 22 or 23, I got to work with some really cool producers like Dallas Austin and Tricky Stewart and Ford. And I said Prince earlier. I was in my first group when I was around that time, and we made a lot of noise, like in Atlanta, and we toured in Europe with Destiny's Child. We got to open up for them and all over America. But when I stepped out of that group, I wanted to be solo and work more on my music that way. And I did this show called Pop Stars, which was a show that the Warner Brothers put out. It was like a reality show for like putting the first girl group together. And out of however many thousands they auditioned all over the country, I was like dialed down to like the last 25. Then went to LA for this huge workshop, working with like David Foster and really big producers and choreographers to try to put a group together that was called Eden's Crush, that then became the Pussycat Dolls. You guys have heard of them, right? The Pussycat Dolls, yeah. I made it to like the finals and didn't make it to that group, but I did decide I wanted to stay with music, and I kept working on my solo career afterwards. And I guess because the buzz was like out there and really happening at that point in my career, more people wanted to work with me, which was really, really beautiful. So I had a really good, more than demo, like a really, really good demo. And I had, with my manager, we had major meetings with basically all the major not independent, but all the major labels in New York at the time. And I don't think they knew what to do with me. I really don't. We did a couple spec deals with different producers. Monty Lipman, who was with Universal at the time, sent me to see a producer named Ford, and we recorded several songs that were in the dance scene circuit for a while, but we never ended up making a full album. There's so much I could talk about. Currently, I am writing my memoir. So you'll hear a lot more of those stories when it comes out. And that's kind of what I've done this last year too, with everything that's happening right now on this realm, plane, sphere, globe, whatever you want to call it. I've been writing my memoir, and there's so many stories there. there's just so much. And I know I'm taking you on a bit of a roller coaster ride right now all over the place, but you'll hear it when it comes out in the memoir. And my goals are to make that into a film. So we're kind of like in a little bit of pre-production right now to take my stories and share more with you about me. And possibly even like, take some of those stories too and make them into series, because there's a lot of comedy there too. There's just some funny shit that's happened on sets. It's just, there's so much. Like I literally was like a foot model for years and had a regular paying gig where I could go in and like just model my feet and my legs. And I would have my sides that I was trying to audition for, like for that night or the next day, whatever it was. And they were just modeling my feet. I didn't even have to have hair or makeup on, It's fun. And it paid really well. Those were the days. Yeah. So yeah, I've been working on my memoir, and that's where I'm at right now in my life, and working on music again. This last year I've been working and writing and singing a lot in the studio with one of my partners, who's Brandon Stiles. And we've got songs that are all over the board. It's like all different genres, from like folk to dance to pop and rock. It's really cool. And I'm also currently working with my partner, Damian Granoff, and Michelangelo Wolf, which if you guys have watched any of these other shows, these stories, you'll see that he's on here too. And a lot of people speak about him. He's amazing. So yes, I've worked with a lot of really cool producers, Dallas Austin, Tricky Stewart, and Prince. I feel like most people want to hear the Prince stories, so I can share a little bit. Shaking your heads, yeah. Some of those stories. I was a part of his life that he kept me really close and personal to him. And probably, I was on tour with them, so I would dance with them, and we would travel, but we were partners, boyfriend, girlfriend. And I think most people that saw us out knew that. But then again, it's kind of one of those things that like, I wasn't the only one. I'm sharing so much, Probably if you looked at it like there was like a pyramid or something like this, like I was up here, maybe one of these girls up here, but not the only one. But I was definitely like a big part of his world, and I miss him a lot. So I'm trying to think of what personal stories I could tell that's not telling too much. I could tell you a funny one. We were at one time in Chanhassen, which is the city that he lives in, and we were coming from Paisley, and it had been snowed in. We were snowed in, so we couldn't really leave. I couldn't fly, and so we decided to just get out in the car. He had like a four-wheeler, and go to the grocery store and get some food. And sometimes we did that. There was never anybody there, and we were coming from his house, just him and I, to try to go to the grocery store. And his house, he lives up on like he's had the house demolished since then, but his house, it was kind of up like on a hill, and the driveway was very long and winding, and it was iced. And we got in the car and started driving and started going down the hill, and we're like turning, and like the car was about to fall over, and I was literally so fucking scared. And I grabbed his leg. I was like, Prince, what the fuck? We're gonna die. And I could just see that, like we're gonna end up in this ditch, and the tabloids are gonna come, or something horrible is gonna happen. And his face went white. He's like trying to like, put it in his gear and get us up. And he's like turning and turning and turning and pulling up. And finally we got back up and peeled on, and we were like, just our hearts were like pounding, and just adrenaline was pumping. And he was like, I'm not even gonna make you put one in the tip jar for that. Because you didn't cuss around him. You just didn't. And we did make it to the grocery store that night. Nervous wrecks, but we made it, and went shopping and got what we needed. So I've got a lot of stories like that, a lot. So, and I am writing my memoir, Black and White Rainbows. It's a working title right now, Black and White Rainbows with Pots of Silver. So a lot of this will come out, more of the detailed stories, but I'll give you just a little bit right now, just little teasers. So he had a tour bus, and it was painted purple, but it didn't have like a symbol on the side or anything like that. So when we were driving from city to city or whatever it was, people wouldn't know it was him. And we always we had fun. Put it that way. We always had fun. Now I'm a hygiene freak and a little bit of OCD, and I love to brush my teeth. So I always had a toothbrush with me. And he used to comment on this a lot, like, you brush your teeth a lot. I'm like, yeah, I want to brush my teeth. I want to be clean. So I can remember one story in particular, like going to the sink in the bus and us brushing our teeth. And he was just very, like this. And I'm just vigilant about it, like getting in there. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm brushing my teeth. This isn't how you brush your teeth. He's like, no, I know how to control my mouth. Mine's like just soap is coming down. I don't know. That's how I brush my teeth. There's so many stories. I remember like one of the first times we were just friends in the beginning, but one of the first times that I met him, or I started touring with him, I had brought him a gift, and it was for him and Mate, because I didn't realize that they weren't together anymore. I thought that they still were. He hadn't shared anything with me or specifics at that point in time, and I brought a gift for her and for him, and he wouldn't accept it. He said, I don't accept gifts. And I felt kind of like uncomfortable about it, but then I later learned, as he told me, that they were not together anymore, and he felt uncomfortable about it in his own words. He didn't say it that way, I'm paraphrasing. So learning him was definitely interesting. We had a lot of talks that turned into arguments sometimes about religion, because I believe in love and light and that there is a God. I'll say goddess sometimes, but he believed there was God, man, and then woman. You can believe what you want to. I think man and woman are equal. I think we're right here. And I think that those opinions that I have and the way that I feel about God, or the goddess, or who we are, were probably some of the biggest issues he had with me, was that I shared that, and you don't really go outside of what he thinks. He likes to keep it here. So, use your imagination there. Advice to my younger self. This is interesting. What advice would I give to my younger self? Well, we say this, we live on earth, so get things in contract, right? Get it in writing, whatever you're about to do. But then you want to have those connections that are real, those real exchanges with people, so you can be real, right? So there was no NDA when I hung out with certain people. Maybe other people had to sign them. I don't know if I'd give myself as much advice about doing something differently as I would be more, I don't even know if I'd given myself any advice. I know that sounds strange. It really does. But I don't know if I would have done anything differently. I think it's the same way. And I also want to say this too, that in my career with modeling, even though I've done a lot of things like acting, modeling, dancing, singing, songwriting, all these things, I think when you're an artist, you have a way of sharing all these things. It doesn't have to be one thing. Maybe focus on one at a time here and there, but as creative people, we have these energies that we need to keep sharing, our lights, our gifts. So keep doing it. Keep sharing whatever it is your gifts are. Don't stay frozen. Try your best to do that, because that's what the goddess wants us to do. And I think that's probably what I have done. That's why I've had so many different, it's not even careers, they're all tied together. Being an artist, it's all tied together. So I do think it's definitely important to keep creating, as I've said a few times. And I think it's really important, no matter what's going on in the world, because there's a lot of craziness going on in the world, right? Some people took this pill, the blue one, and some people took the red. But I think that you just need to realize that I think sometimes, even though there's a lot of crazy stuff going on Earth, sometimes fear is the virus. And don't be scared. Don't be too scared to keep creating. You can find your tribe. You can create music. You can create your own content. And there are ways to still do this. Don't feel like you're just stuck in the house. We're doing it now. I walked in with a 6-foot stick, so you didn't get close to me. You didn't close to me and clean me, but I didn't really do that. But yeah, just keep creating. And there's a way to stay busy independently, and we're still auditioning. As an actress, I still do it all the time. I'm still booking things. Don't get frozen. Don't get stuck. There's a lot of gray, I know, at times, but be the light, see the light, and just keep creating from your soul. This is Studio Stories, and I hope you enjoyed it, beautiful people. See you next time. Bye!